أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to take علوم القرآن. علوم القرآن means what? And we're also going to do the Tafseer as well. So as you can see, we're going to be taking two things. علوم القرآن, an introduction to علوم القرآن, and an introduction to Tafseer. Two things, inshallah ta'ala. And as you can all see, brothers and sisters who are listening, I really think this is important that you do these modules, because it will give you a very strong understanding of every science that you ever need to study. A lot of us read the Quran, but we don't understand it. And we don't even know the path to take in order to learn the Quran. With this, inshallah ta'ala, patience that you all should show, you will reach a point, inshallah ta'ala, to understand what Allah wants from you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what I'm going to start with is introduction, for the introduction of ulum al-Quran, and that is the virtue of learning this subject, sharaf. And I want to mention three things, inshallah ta'ala. The virtue of learning this, I'm going to break it into 3 points, inshallah ta'ala. The sharaf, the virtue of learning the ulum al-Quran. Number one, it's connected to what it deals with. The honor here is connected to what it deals with. Mawdu'u. What does Tafseer deal with? It deals with the speech of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So the honor here is what? It's the kalam of Allah. It's the speech of Allah. I ask you all a question. Is Allah above and greater and noble than all His creation? Is He not? Is Allah not greater than His slaves? Then His speech should be greater than the speech of the creation. If Allah is greater than the creation, and He's better than the creation, then His speech should be better than the speech of the creation. Sahih? So the first one is, this science, ulum al-Quran, what does it deal with? Mawdu'. What does it deal with? It deals with the kalam of Allah. And the kalam of Allah is great. So that's the first virtue. Does that everybody understand that point? Min jihatu mawdu'u, what it deals with. It deals with Allah's speech. You're going to learn, understand this subject, which is Allah's speech. Now, yeah? Mawdu' means what it deals with. What does it deal with? The second is min haythu al-gharad, min jihati al-gharad. What's the objective behind ulum al-Quran? This gives it a virtue as well. How does it? We want from it sa'adatu darain. We want the happiness and the prosperity of this world and hereafter. Didn't Allah not say in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى قَالَ رَبِّ لِمَ حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا قَالَ كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. Allah said in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, anyone who turns away from my speech, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا, Allah is going to give you a hard life. You could be the richest man on this earth. You can have so much money you want. You could have everything you want. Wallahi, you're going to feel darkness in your heart. Why? Because you don't have the speech of Allah. It's funny because there was a lawyer in the UK, solicitor, very rich in the UK. His name was Wilson. His son told me this story. His father was very rich, extremely rich, had so much money. So what he did was, he was so rich, this man, solicitor, he went to Australia and he saw a big beautiful apartment, house, mansion, and he told his employees, you know, I like this house, I like this mansion. I would like you to do a background check and find me the price of what it's worth and, you know, buy it for me. So he went back to the UK. When he went back, his employees, they catch Try to find out how much the price is and how soon they can buy it and whatnot. And they found out that it was one of his properties. From one of the properties which he owned. He was extremely rich. Min al-ajaib, from the fascination, was that he killed himself. He took his own life because life became very tight on him. No happiness, no joy, no laughing. He said, my father spent the last couple of years misery, sadness. For us it's not gharib, because Allah tells us, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. And wallahi, I saw when I went back home into my country, Somalia, I saw a man, he wakes up in the morning, Fajr, Salaam alaikum, Jama'ah, first line. He finishes, he goes to his house, he has a plate, and he puts sweets on top of that plate, 7, 8 sweets. He goes to the market, he sells it. The money that he makes from it, he gives part of it to his wife, and the rest he sits Asr time in the coffee shop and he drinks tea. Salatul Jama'ah, he's in the masjid, and in the durus, he's at the front line, he's writing his notes. He's laughing, he's smiling. And he only has what? Those sweets that he sells in the morning and at that time. Another fascinating story was, a man told me he owned a business. What did he own? He owned a business. And one night he closed his shop and he was counting the money. See how much he made that day. And one of his employees came, he knocked on the door, he asked for water, and he asked for food that he placed inside the working place. So he said, can you give me the food I left in the... So he gave him the food, gave him the water, he drank it, he ate it. And because he didn't have anywhere to live, he slept right in front of the shop. In the morning he wants to wake up from there and carry on from work. So he snored, and his snoring was making it hard for the man to count his money. So he stopped. He looked, who's this person making this noise, snoring? He woke him up, he said, can you leave? He said, no, this is where I sleep. Then he thought, this is an employee that works for me. He hasn't got nowhere to sleep, or he can't go, where he does have somewhere to sleep, but he's somewhere far. If he can't make it back for the money that he needs. He's snoring like this and he's enjoying himself. I am the owner of the shop, I have the money. So what do you realize? The happiness is not the money that you have, the dinar and the dirham. It's something Allah places in the person's heart. Two great scholars, Ibrahim ibn Adham and Abu Yusuf, they went together. They both had 2 breads dry. And they took that bread and they dipped it in the side of the ocean, in the water. And they waited for it to become soft. And they ate. And Abu Yusuf and Ibrahim ibn Adham looked at each other. And Ibrahim ibn Adham said, لو علم الملوك وأبناء الملوك ما نحن فيه من النعيم والسرور لجادلونا عليه بالسيوف. If the kings and the children of the kings were to know the happiness that we have, they would try to take it away from us. ولذلك ابن تيمية said إن في الدنيا جنة من لم يدخلها لم يدخل جنة الآخرة. In this dunya there's a Jannah. If you don't enter the Jannah of this dunya, you're not going to enter the Jannah of the hereafter. And so they asked him, what is the Jannah of this dunya? And he said, Al-Imanu Billah. To believe in Allah, it's a Jannah itself. Happiness, joy that you're going to feel. And this comes from the Kalam of Allah. When you study it and you learn the book of Allah, it brings you happiness. One of the great scholars that recently died was Sheikh Muqbil. Sheikh Muqbil, they said, he had not much daughters. Sorry, he didn't have no son, he only had daughters. And he was qalilul yad, he had no money. Very poor. Very, very poor. He said, rahimahullah, when I open Sahih al-Bukhari and I say haddathana, he said, all of my sadness and pain that I had will all go. Haddathana meaning opening the chain of hadith. When I open the hadith book and I want to read the chain, all of my misery and pain and stress that I had will all go. So brothers, when you study the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla, you will find happiness in this world, and what awaits you is darajat, levels that Allah is going to give you subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third benefit that it has is al-hajatu ilayh, the need that we have for it. In order to understand this science, ulumul Quran, and its tafsir is a backbone for any of the sciences of the religion. You need it. If you do not study this subject and you don't learn this subject, you're not going to understand the religion. Why? Because what's the source of our religion? What's the first source of our religion? The Quran. If you don't understand the book of Allah, فَلِمَا سِوَاهُ أَضْيَعْ, then you're going to forsake everything else, aren't you? Yeah? So we need it. Based on these 3 points, this science is virtuous. In terms of what it deals with, it's the speech of Allah. In terms of the objective, the ultimate goal that we gain from it, which is happiness in this world and then hereafter, Allahumma barik, it's also virtuous. The third one is how, if we want to understand the religion, we need to start with this subject and make it our backbone. The first thing that we study, the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. We study what? The book of Allah Azza wa Jal. The third one is the need that we have for it. Al-hajatu ilayhi. The need that we have for it. The hunger that we have for it. Now I'm going to mention, this is the virtue that's in it. What is the benefits of studying it? What are the benefits that are in it? Studying this science, of course, the first benefit that it has is that you're going to understand the book of Allah. If you study this science, ulumul Quran, you're going to understand the book of Allah. That's the first benefit that it has. The second benefit that it has, so we mentioned 3 points for the virtue, and we're going to mention 3 points for the benefits. The first benefit, by studying this subject, you're going to understand the book of Allah. I know this closely interlinked, the benefits and the virtue, but I wanted to separate it. The second is, this science is a good weapon to defend the religion of Allah. Nowadays the Quran is being attacked. Is it from God? Did Allah actually speak it? Has it been tampered with? Did it change over time? By studying this science, you will be able to defend the Quran and prove that the Quran, as Allah says, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ, that the Quran is actually protected. The third benefit is the person who understands the Quran is raised stations. What is he raised? Stations. And also, what's our objective from this subject, inshallah ta'ala? 3. Our objective is 3 things, inshallah ta'ala, from this particular subject. And we plan to do, inshallah ta'ala. The first one is, we want to define the headings that are in this field. Like, Asbabun Nuzul. This surah is Makki, this is Madani. What does it mean? Also, what does it mean? Nasikh and Mansukh. Abrogated, and this is the abrogator. What does that mean? We want to define those words. We want you to understand when you read the Quran and somebody says to you, this is Makki. Okay. This is Madani surah. Okay. What does it mean? Are we all together? So this first objective is to define and explain, inshallah ta'ala, the headings that are in this subject. There are headings over 100. Rather, it's 1,000. We won't be able to go through all the 1,000. We'll just mention the most important ones. Are we all together? The second objective from this subject is to study the correct way of interpreting the Quran. What is the correct way to interpret the Quran? How should a person interpret the Quran? Should I just open the Quran and look at it and use my emotions? No. What's the correct way? We'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala. Also, how to deal with the books that the scholars wrote in this particular field. Which book is the most important one for me to read? Should I buy this one now? What are the methodology of the scholars in the books? Those three, inshallah ta'ala, after we finish this, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem, these 3 points will be your objective. This module will answer all of this for you. Am I making sense? How many lectures is it going to be? Usul al-Tafseer? Yeah. It's going to be 10, inshallah ta'ala. Sahih? 10 lectures we're going to take. Today is the first lecture. It's going to be 10 more, inshallah ta'ala. And in those 10, each lesson, I'm going to give you a heading, and we're going to tackle that heading, inshallah ta'ala, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. Faddal. The first one for what? Defining the most fundamental headings for this particular science. The second one is the correct way to interpret the Quran. And the third one is how to deal with the books that are written in ulum al-Quran and in the science of the Quran. How do you deal with these books? They're too much. There are over thousands. Shall I start with particular ones? Shall I not? Whose book would be the best one for me right now? How did that scholar author that particular book? We'll speak about that inshallah ta'ala. So by the time we take this module, the Sharjah bookshop is, what's it called, the book fair is going to happen, right? So a lot of students are going to go there. And they're going to go buy books, ulum al-Quran and its tafsir from the book fair. Huh? But knowing what books they want and why they want it and what publication. Inshallah ta'ala. So today what we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala, is we're just going to define ulum al-Quran. We're just going to define it. The definition of ulum al-Quran and also how it developed. Those are the only two we're going to take inshallah today. So today's class is Ta'rif ulum al-Quran. What is ulum al-Quran? What does this subject mean? And also, what is the stages it went through? Are we all together? That's all we're going to do inshallah ta'ala today. Ulum al-Quran is a science that deals with ulum al-Quran is a science that deals with matters pertaining to the Quran. That's all I could say for now. That's the best definition I could say for now. Are we all together? So it's a science that deals with matters pertaining to or regarding the Quran. Okay? That's what it means. And some of the headings so ulum al-Quran is a science that deals with matters pertaining to the Quran. And some of its headings are, and some of the headings, some of the topics that are discussed in this science are qira'at, the way to read the Quran. What's the best way of dialect of the Quran? Dialect of the Quran, would that be a good translation? Qira'at, what's the best word, what's the best to use? Dialects of the Quran, Modes, recitations. You all understand it, right? Qira'at, we'll discuss it here. Also what we will discuss is what? Jam'ul Quran, how the Quran was compiled. It's discussed here. How was the Quran compiled? Did the Quran get lost? Was it done correctly? Also, we'll talk about Asbab al-Nuzul. Each verse that came down, what was the event in which it came down on? And this is a particular science. We'll also be talking about the sequence and the order of the verses and the surah. It's also discussed here. Makki and Madani. The surahs that are called Makki and Madani. What are Makki? Does Makki mean every surah that came down in Mecca? And Madani, does it mean every surah that came in Medina? Or does Makki mean anything that came down before the Hijrah? And Madani means what came after the Hijrah, even if it came down in Mecca. Does that make sense? We'll be discussing that inshallah ta'ala. Also, An-Nasikh wal-Mansukh. The Quran getting abrogated. How does the Quran get abrogated? Does Allah say something and come back from it again? Can stories be abrogated? Or would that be considered lying? Somebody says to you, yesterday I went to Umrah, and he goes, I abrogated that. Can you abrogate stories and information? Or is abrogation specific to rulings? We'll be discussing that inshallah ta'ala. Also, the Quran has ambiguous verses, and there are verses which are clear-cut. We'll be discussing what are those ambiguous verses. How should we deal with them? What are those clear-cut verses? And how should we deal with that? We'll also be discussing gharib. Quran uses words which are strange. Strange, when I say it, I mean gharib in the Arabic language is a word that's not commonly used. It's not commonly used. It's rarely used. The Quran adopts it and he uses it. Is every single word in the Quran Arabic? Or are there non-Arabic words in the Quran? If there are non-Arabic words in the Quran, then why did Allah say Qur'anan Arabiyyan ghayra dhi iwajin? And how do you reconcile between that? We'll study that here inshallah ta'ala. I'rab al-Quran, the grammatical morphology and the grammatical analysis of the Quran. Does Quran follow the grammar that the Arabs know, or does the Quran go against the grammar and make its own rulings? All of these are studied in ulum al-Quran. Are we all together? That's some of the headings that we'll discuss inshallah ta'ala. Are we all together, brothers? So now I've defined for you what the subject means, right? Now I'm going to go into how it developed. This subject, ulum al-Quran, is the first subject that was established. It was the first established subject in the religion. Why? Because the Quran was the first to come down. And from that moment onwards, the Sahabas were memorizing it. And they were taking it from the Prophet. And the Prophet was commenting on the Quran. And the Sahabas were taking its understanding from him, salawatullahi wa salamun alayhi. And then Tafseer was already happening. Tafseer is part of ulum al-Quran. Are we all together, brothers? So this subject, which is known as ulum al-Quran, is the first subject in our religion that was placed. How was it placed? The Prophet ﷺ was teaching his companions. He was making them learn it. He was making sure they memorized it, salawatullahi wa salamun alayhi, and they were making sure that they memorized it and that they understood it. ولذلك, look how their understanding was. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, ما من آية في كتاب الله إلا وأنا أعلم أين نزلت ومتى نزلت وفي من نزلت ولو كنت أعلم أحدا أعلم مني بكتاب الله تقطعه المطايا من الإبل لركبت ولا ذهبت إليه. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said that there's not an ayah that came down except I know where it came down and who it came down and what it came down on. And if I was to know anyone more knowledgeable than me in this book on this earth, I would have gone to him. I would have taken my riding beast, I would mount on my riding beast, and I would go to him to take the Quran from him. But there isn't. ولذلك Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, at that time, no one knew the book of Allah greater than him. Are you with me? So you can see how knowledgeable they were in the Quran. You also find Abdullah ibn Abbas, it was transmitted that he went to Hajj, and the day of Arafah he did the Hajj, he did the khutbah. And when he did the khutbah, he took one verse and he made the whole khutbah on one verse, and he explained that one verse. And you know what the listeners, they said? لو سمعه الروم والفرس. If the Romans and the Persians were to hear his commentary of the Quran, لأسلموا جميعا. All of them would have taken Islam. The way he pointed each verse out and extracted from it fiqh, rulings. Are you with me? Abdullah ibn Abbas one day said, when Allah said in the ayah, when Allah spoke about the story of Ashabul Kahfi, and Allah spoke about the number and how many they were, and the dog, what did Allah say? لا يعلمهم إلا قليل. Not many people know the number of how many the people of the cave were. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, and I am from those little who know. Because Allah said in the ayah, not many little know it. Are you with me, brothers? Little know it. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, وَأَنَا مِنَ الْقَلِيلِ, I'm from the little who know it. And we don't doubt that, because the Prophet ﷺ, what did he do to him? He said, Allahumma faqihhu fi ddin wa allimhu ta'wil. Oh Allah, give him the understanding of the religion. And Ibn Abbas was given the understanding of the Quran. So much so, that as a young boy, he sat in the gathering of who? In the gathering of Abdurrahman ibn Auf and Umar ibn al-Khattab. He sat with the House of Commons, as we say in the UK, yeah? House of Parliament. Shura. And Abdullah ibn Abbas did not even pass the age of 19. He was either 16 or 17. He's sitting with big Sahaba. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf said, Ya Umar, this boy is the same age as my son and as our sons. Take him out of the gathering. Umar said, there's a reason why I put him in the gathering. There's a reason. He said, إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فصبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. What do you understand from Abdurrahman? Abdurrahman ibn Auf, what do you understand from this? He said, I understand this as that whenever the people become large in number, Allah commanded the Prophet and instructed him to increase in the adhkar and the dhikr that he does. Umar said, is that all you've understood from the surah? He said, that's what I've understood from it. Umar then said to the remaining other companions, what did you guys understand from this surah? And they all mentioned it. Roughly the same as what Abdurrahman ibn Auf said. And then he looked at Ibn Abbas and he said, what do you understand from this surah? 17, 18-year-old. And he looked at Umar and he said, I understood from the surah that Allah was telling the Prophet, your time is close. That your time is what? It's close. Umar looked at the rest of them and he said, and I haven't understood from it, Ibn Abbas, except that which you've understood from it. And I chose this boy to sit with us because he has the book of Allah. And Umar was the one who said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْفَعُ بِهَذَا الْقُرْآنِ أَقْوَامًا وَيَضَعُ بِهِ آخَرِينَ. He narrated it from the Prophet, that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah raises this Qur'an, because of it a people, a nation are raised because they held on to the Qur'an and they memorized and they understood it. And another people, they're just humiliated because they left the Qur'an. Huh? Holding on to the Qur'an, Allah gives you a station. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلِذَلِكَ look at the Sahabas, how they understood the Qur'an. At the time of Uthman ibn Affan, Ibn Abdul Barr mentioned this in his kitab At-Tamheed. At the time of Uthman, a woman came and what she did was she was accused of committing zina by her husband because she gave birth at 6 months. Are you with me? So when she gave birth at 6 months, her husband goes, look, this is not my child. So I've only been married to the woman for this time. She got pregnant straight away. She had 6 months. It can't be possible. This child is not mine. So Uthman radiallahu anhu said, come forward. We have to do, because the situation doesn't look in your favor to the woman. Ali heard that this is taking place. He mounted on his riding beast and he went to Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Ali was at Kufa at that time. He came from Kufa, came to Medina, and he met Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He said to Uthman, don't do it. This woman is not what she's being accused of. He said, Umar said, Uthman said to Ali, hey, what's your evidence? He said, my evidence is in the Quran. The book of Allah. He said, how's it in the book of Allah? He said, didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا. The pregnancy and the breastfeeding 30 months. How many months? Allah mentioned 30 months. Breastfeeding and how much? The breastfeeding and the pregnancy. Allah said 30 months. وحمله, pregnancy. وفصاله, the breastfeeding, 30 months. Allah already told us in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah how long the breastfeeding is. What did he say? وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ. 2 years is the breastfeeding. How much months is 2 years? 24. So what's this pregnancy then? This is called دلالة الاقتضاء in usul al-fiqh. So what's left is going to be the pregnancy according to the Sharia. He said the woman is right, she's 6 months pregnant, no problem. It's affirmed in the Quran. Does everyone understand the point? Uthman, who we know read the Quran inside out. Uthman was from the Huffaz al-Kibar. He's one of the compilers of or worked on the compiling of the Quran. مع ذلك, something you couldn't see, Ali ibn Abi Talib saw it. Are you with me, brothers? Does that make sense? So the Sahabas, they were like that when it came to they knew its science. They knew how to deal with the Quran. What did they know? They knew how to deal with the Quran. So the Quran was from the early sciences that were written. After that, the Sahabas, the students of the Sahabas took from them. The students of the companions, they were not joking. They wanted to take the Quran. From them is Mujahid ibn Jabrin. Mujahid ibn Jabrin, he went to Abdullah ibn Abbas and he said to Ibn Abbas, here's the book of Allah. Explain it from me word for word, from one side to the other side. Look what he said. عرضت المصحف على ابن عباس 3 عرضات. I opened the Quran in front of Ibn Abbas 3 times, from beginning to end. أوقف عند كل آية. Every ayah I stop him. I say, what does this mean? Okay, next one. From one cover to the other cover, 3 times Mujahid said, I took it from Abdullah ibn Abbas. Are we all together? ولذلك the scholars, they said regarding Mujahid's tafsir, it's a serious issue. Sufyan al-Thawri, what did he say? إذا جاءك تفسير مجاهد فحسبك به. If the tafsir of Mujahid comes to you, don't ask for anything else. Take it. Why? Because who did he take it from? Ibn Abbas. And where did Ibn Abbas take it from? From the Prophet ﷺ. Are we all together? Also another Imam, Abu al-Jawza. Abu al-Jawza, he said, جاورت ابن عباس. Abu al-Jawza, he said, I was neighbors with Ibn Abbas for 12 years. I took the Quran from him. 12 years I was his neighbor. I took the Quran from him. There are also from the Tabi'in, Tawus ibn Kaysan and Mujahid ibn Jabrin and Ata ibn Abi Rabah and the likes of these scholars. What did they do? They all took from the companions. Our religion, the benefits of our religion is that the Sahabas took from the Prophet, the students of the companions took from this, and it went like that, gradual, tadarruj. And I want you to focus on one point because it's very important right now here, which is what? In Islam, our religion was based upon memorization. I want you to understand this value, it's very important. The Sahabas, they memorized it. The Prophet passed it over to them. They passed it over to their students, and that's how the Quran was kept. 60, 70 years. Why am I saying 60, 70 years? 20 years back home in my country, Somalia, 20 years ago, Somalia, you would struggle to find a mushaf in a house. People were memorizing it from the Quran teacher. He would dictate it, the student would write it on a big lawh. Some students never saw a mushaf as children. They didn't ever see it. The Quran was done like that. So whoever says that the Quran was not preserved doesn't know how the Arabs and the Muslims at that time lived. Forget the Quran being preserved. The Arabic poetry was preserved. The poetry of the Arabs, Umru al-Qais and Antara ibn al-Shaddad and Zuhair ibn Abi Sulma, Mu'allaqat al-Ashara. The pre-Islamic poets, the things that they said, they would dictate it and people would listen and they would memorize it. They'll go. And we have those poetries documented today. Let alone the Quran, which Allah promised He's going to look after it. So the Quran is preserved in 2 ways. Number 1, it was passed over verbally, orally. Sahabas were memorizing it and they were passing on. They said that Ubay, the companion Ubay ibn Ka'b ibn Ubay, he memorized Surah Al-A'raf by hearing it once. All of Surah Al-A'raf he heard it once. And he memorized it. He memorized the whole surah. Once that happened, brothers, the Sahabas, we spoke about it, and then the Tabi'een, we spoke about them. Then came the time of writing. Documentation started. The Quran had to now be documented. Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, as you all know, what did he do? So Abu Bakr, what did he first do? Abu Bakr saw that the reciters of the Quran are dying. I don't want to go too much into this because we're going to speak about it in more details, the Jam'ul Quran. All of these points that I'm mentioning, we're going to speak about it. We're going to speak about it in more details. But Abu Bakr, he commanded the Quran to be compiled. Now please pay attention here, okay? Abu Bakr, what he did was, he gathered the whole Quran and he brought it together. He did not make it one type of recitation. Okay? All he did was what? Jama. Just bring, everybody bring your notes. Okay, bring your mushaf. You have your mushaf written for you, bring it. Bring it. Everybody bring your mushafs. He brought it and he put it together. And it stayed with who? Hafsa kept it. Uthman, lakin, he did unification. He united them upon a particular type of Quran recitation. And he got rid of the rest. Because the people were arguing and debating. And so he brought them together. This we're going to speak about it in more details when we speak about Jam'ul Quran. From there, scholars, they saw that the science of Quran was so much. And they started to author books. Some of them, they went towards qira'at and they wrote books. One of the first people who wrote in qira'at, or the first person who wrote in qira'at, was Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Salam. He wrote. After him came Ibn Mujahid, not Mujahid ibn Jabrin, another one. Ibn Mujahid. He wrote a kitab called Al-Qira'at al-Sab'ah. And then from there came books of tafsir, like Yahya ibn Salam and others. They started to write in tafsir. They started to write in qira'at. They started to write in the terms and the words that are in the Quran. Books got written. And all of the books are written on your notes that were given to you. So the Quran, that's how it became. I'm going to conclude inshallah ta'ala by mentioning 2 points inshallah ta'ala, which is this whole class I'm going to depend on one powerful book. If you want to buy it, it's your choice, you can buy it. And I believe it's the best book if you want to read in Ulum al-Quran. Unprecedented. The best book written in this whole subject. It's the Kitab Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran. And it's written by Jalaluddin As-Suyuti. The beautiful thing is, it's actually translated in English now, alhamdulillah. Yeah? So here you have it, huh? So it's translated. Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran is the book that each and every one of you should try to buy. What's the translation? Suhail? It says, I think precision in the science of Quran or something like that. It will be emailed, yeah? Yeah. That book, it's in English. Try to buy it and read it. Don't read it once. Don't read it twice. Don't read it thrice. Read it as much as possible. Huh? The author is Jalaluddin As-Suyuti. He originally took it from the Burhan of Zarkashi. He summarized it from it. Huh. You're going to have to share that with your brothers, inshallah. They'll be sent to you the details of where to buy that book. Please buy it. This book is gold. It's valuable. And there's so much knowledge in it when it comes to the what? Ulum al-Quran. This science that we're talking about, I'm only going to go quickly. I'm picking things from it here and there to share it with you all. Lakin, there's so much gems in there. So on your spare time, just read it. And whatever you don't understand, I'm more than welcome to discuss it with you, inshallah ta'ala. If you go to Arabic, Mu'assasat al-Risala is the best. With the tahqiq of Shu'aib Arnaout. Very good, Allah barik. Mu'assasat al-Risala is good. Okay, any questions? Yeah? A question from the sister, yeah? What's the difference between tafsir and tadabbur? Tafsir of the Quran means the commentary of the Quran, understanding the meaning of the Quran. A person who does tafsir of the Quran does not necessarily ponder on the Quran. Meaning, to ponder on the Quran, you need to have understanding of the tafsir. Tafsir is the beginning, before it. Tafsir means to have the understanding. And tadabbur means to ponder and contemplate over what you've understood. Are we all together? وَلِذَلِكَ the Quran, the pondering on it is of two types. Ayat, which it calls ayat shar'iyah. Looking at the grammar, looking at how Allah spoke, why did Allah use this term, and pondering on it like that. And how Allah speaks about Jannah, and how He speaks about the Nar, and how Allah speaks about this, and how He speaks about that. That's tadabbur. Are we all together? That's ayat which are shar'iyah, the Quran in its format. Tadabbur can also be that which is not ayat shar'iyah. It can be the universal signs. Going out there and looking at the sun and the moon and how Allah created everything around you. This is called tadabbur. This is not tafsir. So meaning tafsir is specific to what? To the Quran. Whereas tadabbur can be what? The ayat shar'iyah and the ayat kawniyah. That's one difference. The second difference is that tadabbur, it comes after you've got a basic understanding of the tafsir. It's a fara', a branch that stems from having understanding of the Quran first. Meaning, a person who doesn't understand the Quran at all, to say, I'm reading it and it's in a different language and you don't understand it, tadabbur can't come from that. Are you with me? Even that though, some scholars they discuss, can tadabbur come from the recitation and the voice and the melody and what it has? Can that be a form of tadabbur? That's what some scholars mention. There is. In other words, tadabbur is more broader than tafsir. Tadabbur is what? For the Quran and other than the Quran. Any other questions? Fadal. As we mentioned, when we come inshallah ta'ala in more details, we're going to discuss it. طُرُقُ تفسير القرآن. How do we do tafsir of the Quran? What path do we take and the methodology to do tafsir of the Quran? When we do mention the path to take and the way to do it and the structure and the layout to do it, if a tadabbur is not in line with that, then it's not right. Are you with me? If the tadabbur is not in line with the tafsir that's taken, then it won't be a tadabbur which is sahih. لذلك, if you go to the tafsir of Shaykh Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti, when he came to the ayah فَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا, the other ayah أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا أَفَلَمْ يَدَّبَّرُوا الْقَوْلَ. I don't know which of those three ayah, but it's one of those three. Go to Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti, when he comes to the ayah, he speaks about the issue of tadabbur. How is it done? Are you with me, brothers? How is it done? Pondering and analyzing. I don't remember word for word what he said, but inshallah ta'ala we'll speak about the issue of how to do tafsir in the chapters to come inshallah ta'ala, and the way to do it inshallah ta'ala. Bi-idhnillah al-kareem. Any other questions?
One more question.
From the sisters.
He's asking that a student is following a particular teacher for a long time and really cannot ask who he has taken the knowledge from. Is it okay to ask the person who he's taken the knowledge from a long
Allah, Allahu Alam, I don't know. Allah knows best. Allahu Alam, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't got an answer on that question. Now, any other question? Okay, can I just ask you guys a question? When we spoke about the virtues of the Quran, how many virtues did we mention? Question 1. Okay, hey, what's the 3? So the mawdu', what it deals with. So the first one was what? The virtue of the Quran in terms of what it deals with. That's one. Hey, second one was what? The objective that we get from it, which is what? Happiness in this world and the third one was what? The need that we have for the Quran. What is the need that we have for it? In order to understand all the other sciences, we need the Quran. Sah? No. The second question is, there are benefits in studying the Quran. What were the 3 benefits that I mentioned? We'll understand the book of Allah by studying this science, ulum al-Quran. Beautiful. Second one, in order to protect the religion from those who say that the Quran is not preserved, this science would help us a lot. Third, Allah will elevate our status. And we will be from what the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna lillahi ahlin. Allah has a people. Allah has a what? Allah has a people. Wa ahlullahi. And the people of Allah is Ahlul Quran, the people of the Quran. The people of the Quran are what? They're the people of Allah Azza wa Jal. Are you with me, brothers? Right now I'm drinking from this cup, right? They use this to pour the water inside there, right? Sah? Brothers, they use this to pour the water inside, correct? Allah Azza wa Jalla has places where He pours things in. And you know where Allah pours things in? The heart of every righteous person. He stores His words inside there. The Prophet ﷺ said that in the hadith Imam al-Tabarani narrated, Inna lillahi aniyah. Allah has vessels where He places things in. Wa aniyatullahi, and the vessels of Allah is qalbu kulla abdin mu'minin. Every righteous slave, Allah used your heart as a storage to keep His words inside there. Another person, in his heart there are other things, music and whatnot. And another person in his heart, Allah is keeping the Quran. So it's Wallah, it's a station. This is a what? Station. Also, can you mention the best book written in Ulum al-Quran that I mentioned? What's the best book that was written? Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran. Who wrote it? Okay. Who was the first person who wrote in Ulum? Who was the first person who authored a book in Qira'at? Qira'at. Who was the first person who authored a book in Qira'at? Abu Ubaid? Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Salam. Write this down if you haven't written this. Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Salam was the first person to have written in Qira'at. I mentioned that. Qasim ibn Salam. It was from the 2nd century, rahimahullah ta'ala. He was the first to write it. Who came after him and wrote it? Who was the second person that wrote in Qira'at? Who? Ibn Mujahid. And you know what he wrote? He called it what? Al-Qira'at al-Sab'ah. The 7 reciters of the Quran that we know, right? The 7 Qurra that we know. He wrote a book in those 7 Qurra. Jameel. We will leave it there, inshallah ta'ala. Any mistakes or shortcomings that have come from me while I was speaking, is from me and shaitan, and Allah and His Messenger are free from it. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Barakallahu feekum for coming. May Allah honor you all. Jazakumullah khairan.